All right, so what we're going to do in this video is expand on our idea or our notion of data storage. Before, we had these different types of data storage. We had a way to store a sentence through a string in our variable here, a bunch of integer ones where we stored health, strength, and movement speed. Let's take a look at a new type of data storage, which is a collection called an array. So a lot of times you'll hear about arrays or array lists and all this other stuff, and we'll get through all that as data structures. And so let's create our first data structure. Let's say we wanted to just make a set of different numbers. Well, I'm going to type in the data type, followed by some brackets, the word number, equals, and then some open and closing curly braces and a semicolon. Now, right off the bat, we created something called an empty array. So I'm going to just write that here. So this is an empty array. Well, what if we want to populate it? Well, just inside of here, I can just put some numbers in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Now, if I want to access an individual element in an array, let's bring up our sysout here. I can just type in number and then a bracket and then the place in line that my variable is. Now, you might be like, well, this is the first place, but you typed a 0 here. Well, these are located at different indices, and the index starts at 0. So this would be 0, the next would be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if I print this out, I should get 10. So just to really help solidify it, let's type in, this is the first index in our array. All right, space that out. We want to concatenate that with a plus sign. And I want to get rid of this on the side here. So if you go to view and turn off show min map, it'll get rid of that for you. Give us a little bit more space. I'm going to shift this over as well. Run this code. And now you can see this is the first index in our array 0 position, which is 10. Well, what if I want to display all of this to the screen? Well, there's 3 parts to any programming language. There's a sequence. We just saw a sequence here. We created the array, and the next thing in the logical order is printing it to the screen. Branching, we'll get into a little bit more into if statements and all that stuff later, but that's just giving the code itself different branches to go down based on different decisions. And then there's looping, so sequencing, branching, and looping. Let's take a look at a loop. We're going to start off with the enhanced for loop. So if you type for here, and you can see there's for I and all these other ones. If you just click on each one, right? So like say you click on that, you can see this is a standard for loop, and it went ahead and generated that for me. Let's take a look at just the for down here. This is the enhanced for loop. For integer I equals number. So what it's doing is, right off the bat, it signifies, or it's like, hey, I realize that you have an array here, and it's before this, so I'm guessing this is the array you want to go through. So if I take this exact same sysout line, so I'm just going to write that out, system output, and I just hit I here, right? And I'm going to hit Control S, and I'm just going to run this. Let's see what happens. What you get is this. This is the first index in our array because we have a sequence here. And I printed I. Number gets passed into I until there's no more elements in our array. So we went 10, let's bring this up a little bit higher. So we get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. All right, that's pretty cool. So I'm going to just help myself out here a little bit and just put enhanced for loop. And then I'm going to get rid of that print line and just do print for a second. All right, so if I run it again, you'll notice that now, let's go ahead and you can see this is the first index in our array 10, and then it just printed this in enhanced for our loop 10, 20, 30. So it kept going as it went through. So it kept reprinting this line. So that's the difference between what we had before, where it would put them all on its own line, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, where for this one, it put it all on the same line. So just wanted to show you that other alternate print statement. So sometimes it looks cleaner if we just run it like this. All right, so let's do another one. So that's that one. I'm going to go ahead and just press enter again and type 4 again, but I'm going to go with this 4i. And what we're doing here is we're checking if I is equal to 0 and I is less than this array dot length. So what did they do here? So you can actually access different properties of an array by just putting a dot, and you can see equals, get class, length. So if I is less than the length of this array, which is currently 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, I plus plus. Let's see what happens. And I starts at 0. I'm going to copy this exact same line, but this time we're not going to be printing out I, because what's happening here is numbers being copied into I. We're actually just going to take this right here and pass it into here. So let me clarify that a little bit too. I starts at 0. This is a brand new variable. That's why we're giving it a data type. If 0 is less than the length of our array, those are the number of elements in our array, we're going to increment I, right? So this goes, it starts at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, until this condition here has been met, right? As long as I is less than 0, or less than the number of length, which could be 4, 5, or whatever. All right, so I'm going to copy this too and just put loop. And I want to show you something else that's interesting as we do this. So I'm going to hit Control F. All right, let's expand this up. Now, notice we get 10 to 50 and we get 10 to 50 here. So the outcome, if I would have just put enhanced in the other way, would have been almost identical. Let's do one more loop and then we'll end this video. So we have our enhanced. So enhanced. And you can just call this standard loop. And let's do a while loop. So a do while loop looks like this. Do whatever is inside of here as long as this condition is true. So we've kind of seen this before. What we're going to do is take this for loop and break it into chunks. So I want to print this to the screen. So I'm going to write do while here. I want to print this do while to the screen as long as, and I need to make a new variable, right? So this was created inside of this. So for this one, I need to grab this integer I here, and I'm going to copy and paste and just place it out here. You'll notice that error will go away. I also want to make sure I grab that semicolon. So now this, because this creation of this I here is local to just this for loop. That's why I got an error. It can't detect that unless it's outside of that loop. So this has become a public variable. So I want to print this statement as long as, and that's where the while comes in, my number is less than length. And remember, this number here is is less than I, I'm sorry, rather. I want to grab all that stuff. As long as I is less than number.length, I'm going to keep running this do loop. Now here's the problem. It will run forever right now because I is always. So that's why we need to steal this third element where we're incrementing I by 1 every time this do loop runs. So I'm going to save this. Let's see what happens. And let's bring this up a little bit. And what we get all the way at the bottom here is the same thing. So it runs through our do, or checks our do here. I'm printing this to the screen. We're at element 0. Element 0 is currently storing 10. I gets updated to 1. So now we're looking at the number 1 slot, which is here. Then I print it again, and it just keeps going through until I is no longer less than the number of length. And the number length, let me kind of really clarify this for a second. We're starting at 0. Here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But number.length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So once we hit 4, 4 is less than 5, then this stops executing. All right, in the next video, we're going to expand on all this stuff and integrate a little bit more design patterning stuff into our data structures.